Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2020 and to your review of qualifying for the Formula 1 2020 Belgian Grand Prix Round 7 of the season, Spa-Francorchamps, my favourite circuit on the calendar. It had been 5 years since a Mercedes won two. You got to think all the way back to 2015 when Hamilton went on to win, Rosberg second and Romain Grosjean third. Will the Frenchman do the same this year? Unlikely, but we can all dream. As always, spoilers ahead, so if you've not yet seen qualifying, go watch that, go watch the highlights, come back here for your qualifying review. Spoiler warning out of the way. If you are new and you enjoy, feel free to subscribe. But without further ado, here is your result for the Belgian Grand Prix qualifying. It was Lewis Hamilton, pole position number 93. In incredible form in 2020, and once again a Mercedes front row lockout, Valtteri Bottas P2. No big surprise there, both Mercedes cars flying. Hamilton a 141.252, a lap record here in Spa. Big surprise though, just behind Bottas, 15 hundredths of a second. Max Verstappen was gutted not to get onto that front row, but on that second row he's joined by former teammate Daniel Ricciardo. The Renault's flying, Albon 5th, Ocon 6th. Really looking forward to seeing how those top six unravel in those opening laps, and if we have rain, even more spicier for the Grand Prix. Behind that top six, Carlos Sainz P7, his best ever result here in Spa. The two racing points, I want to talk about them a little bit further back than we expected. P8 for Perez, P9 for Lance Stroll, and Lando Norris your top 10. For the first time this season, Danny Kvyat finally outqualified teammate Pierre Gasly. Had the luck of the toe, just beating his teammate. Both of those two with tyre choice tomorrow in the Grand Prix could be ones to watch, especially if there is indeed wet conditions. Ferrari, 13th and 14th. That does not tell the full picture. I think you all know that is the big story from today's qualifying session, and we will definitely get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. George Russell, another mega job from the young British driver, P15 through to Q2. They did not expect that whatsoever here in Spa. Helped, of course, by the struggles of Ferrari, but another incredible performance from George today. Raikkonen P16, Grosjean P17, Giovinazzi 18th, and your back row, Nicholas Latifi P19, and Kevin Magnussen for the first time this season, dead last in P20. Right, before we jump into the debrief, let's quickly take a look at your grid for tomorrow. And once again in 2020, it's a Mercedes front row lockout. However, only one Grand Prix this year has resulted in a Mercedes 1-2, and that was all the way back at the Styrian Grand Prix, round 2 of the season. Will Verstappen on that second row be able to wiggle his nose in once again with wet conditions? You'd think he'd be able to. It's his former teammate alongside him, Ricciardo, his current teammate alongside him in P5 behind, and it's the other Renault of Ocon rounding out that third row of the grid. It's then the two McLarens and the two Racing Points on row 4s and 5, a McLaren sandwich with Sainz in 7th and Norris in P10. On row 6, it's AlphaTauri, row 7, the two Ferraris. Russell is on the lead of row 8 alongside Kimi Raikkonen, Grosjean, Giovinazzi, Latifi and Magnussen, your back 4. I was intending this week to start with the front, talk about the guys, your Mercedes, your best of the rest fight where the Red Bulls. We usually start from the back, and I think this week we're going to continue that trend because there is a whopping big story with Ferrari. But first of all, like we do most weeks, let's talk about that back group. And as always, it was the two Haas cars, the two Alphas and the two Williams. Not really a huge lot of storylines with that group this time around. Of course, we had Kevin Magnussen in Q1 make a huge mistake at the end of Sector 2, going wide into the gravel trap. Some great drifting work, some great rally driving from K-Mag, but couldn't recover. Of course, it was the end of the session, ultimately putting him at the back of the grid for the first time in 2020. Grosjean did a little bit better, up in 17th, but all of those cars with Ferrari engines really struggling. Latifi once again, not P20, not a horrific job from the rookie, but George Russell, that was the story once again from that back group. Yes, again, you can point out that Ferrari were having so many issues, but Russell and Williams came to this circuit really expecting to be dead last, P19 and P20 for what would have been the first time this season. So to get no drivers last, to get one driver through to Q2 really is another incredible job, but it was in front of that back group. Ferrari 13th and 14th last year. Formula One were ridiculously savage during the broadcast, putting up a statistic that Ferrari were 1-2 in every single practice, every single qualifying session, and in the Grand Prix. The whole weekend, Ferrari were 1-2 last season. This season, only just scraped through into Q2. Definitely helped out by Magnussen going wide, causing a couple of people behind K-Mag to do slightly slower laps. Raikkonen, Grosjean and Giovinazzi, the three I'm thinking of, that maybe could have sneaked through. And thinking about that, thinking about how Ferrari were so good last year, and for all of those Ferrari power teams to be so far behind is mind-boggling. But from a driver perspective, Vettel much closer to Leclerc this time around. No mistakes from either of them, and actually in Q1, going out and not using the tow, ignoring the traffic, really helped the Ferraris actually scrape through into Q2. Of course, Magnussen running right into the gravel, ruining a whole host of laps behind. So I think from a driver perspective, what more are they really expected to do? But a huge slap in the face once again for Ferrari. When you then think we're going to Monza next time out, it's just going to sting. They are a team praying for rain tomorrow. Both drivers pretty nifty in wet conditions. Vettel last year, of course, a fantastic Grand Prix in Germany. Dead last to P2. So he knows how to do it in wet conditions, but they're going to need some miracles to really recover tomorrow. In front of those two, the two AlphaTauris. We expected it really all weekend long, and it's been a similar story all season long with this team that are just on the cusp of that top 10 group, and a mega lap from either driver may just scrape them through to Q3. But Kvyat in particular here has been a driver who's not done great in qualifying. Of course, today was the first session all season Kvyat has beat Gasly in qualifying. However, Kvyat has been great at doing the alternate strategy, starting on that different tyre thanks to being outside the top 10, working his way through, making overtakes, making the tyres last. Now the team have both drivers on that strategy. I think that really could play dividends tomorrow. Inside that top 10, McLaren of Norris, P10, Sainz, P7. Pretty much what we expected, I would say, from the two McLaren cars. But I think the big story at the lower end of the top 10 is the two racing points. 8th and 9th, Perez 8th, 9th for Lance Stroll. I mean, it's not bad. You know, you look at this circuit for the last few years, it's been a circuit that's been great for Racing Point. But if you look at where their qualifying has been this season in particular, it's not out of the ordinary that they are in 8th and 9th. But it's just a circuit that they're so good at. I mean, 3rd and 4th a couple of years ago with Perez and Ocon, with that complete change in philosophy to this year's, last year's Mercedes, the Racing Point, you'd have thought they were going to be guaranteed to be quick here. But it just never materialised. They tried to do the medium strategy going into Q3. They didn't have the pace. And that suggests to me that the team even expected to be a little bit closer to the front than they actually turned out to be. I think a lot of us thought they'd be in the mix with the two Red Bull cars, yet alone Renault being in the mix with the two Red Bulls and for that second row of the grid. Really strange one from Racing Point. We've seen earlier on this season that their car isn't great in wet conditions. So coming to this weekend, though a lot of us potentially expected a podium for Racing Point, looks now that they're going to be fighting at the lower end of the points, which is just such a huge anomaly considering their pace this season. In front of them, though, the two Red Bulls, but we've got to talk about Renault. We know this year that midfield fight has been all over the place, and I've been absolutely loving it. Once again this year, one of the best midfield fights We go into each weekend just not knowing who's going to be at the front, and this time it's the turn of Renault, and not only is it the turn of Renault, Red Bull have slipped back a little bit further into that midfield group, allowing Ricciardo to be alongside Verstappen in a Red Bull sandwich, allowing Ocon to be just behind Alex Albon, and we saw it last season. Ricciardo qualified 4th in Canada, didn't he? A circuit with just mega long straights. Monza as well, finished in the race 4th. So this Renault power, though I'd say potentially since the start of the hybrid era, I think it's been the engine most heavily criticised for not having enough power. The last couple of years, they've really started to turn it around, and certainly on power-sensitive circuits, Renault have been one of the better teams. Bear in mind as well that Mercedes, this is going to be their last weekend with the higher power quali modes. Maybe Renault could be an even bigger threat next time out in Monza. Big couple of weekends for Renault. If their car, and what appears to be, is more suited to these more power-sensitive circuits, they've got to score big. There is a chance, it's small, but there is a chance Ricciardo could be on the podium tomorrow for Renault. It's his best ever qualifying here in Monza. Another driver that has said he's got a good opportunity on that opening lap with a bit of slipstream. I think Ricciardo has got to be one of my huge ones to watch for the Grand Prix. A driver who's not necessarily known to be one of the best in wet conditions, but certainly isn't one of the worst. And at the front, Mercedes 1 and 2, Hamilton half a second in front of Valtteri Bottas. Another masterclass. And whereas in those first couple of weekends we thought Bottas may be able to hold on, may be able to start forging some kind of championship fight, Hamilton just in a completely different realm in terms of pace this weekend. Verstappen, though, right on the back of Valtteri. Even Ricciardo, just 0.3 off the Mercedes driver. Bottas needs a win. I think Bottas just needs a second place. He hasn't had a second place since that second race of the season. So, just needs a clean weekend. Verstappen, with Albon much closer, with strategy options, with rain in the air, I think we could see a really exciting Grand Prix tomorrow, if I've not said that a million times already. Before we go then, driver of the day, ones to watch, and then we'll take a quick look forward at tomorrow's race. Driver of the day is a tight one. There's two I'm so close to giving it to, but I'm just going to give it to Daniel Ricciardo. Hamilton was great. 0.5 in front of Bottas was magic, but I just think Bottas didn't quite nail a lap, whereas Ricciardo, not only is that his best result at Spa, not only is that his best qualifying result of the season, 0.3 in front of Ocon, with brake-by-wire issues all the way through the session, to still have the confidence to smack in the lap like that. There was a mistake at the end, and that didn't help him, but with that issues, with the brake, that would have been quite nerve-wracking, especially at a circuit like Spa. Magic job from Daniel Ricciardo, but again, Lewis Hamilton super close for driver of the day. And ones to watch tomorrow, there's plenty of them. I've spoke about most of them already, but Sergio Perez, I feel there's got to be a bit more pace in that Racing Point / Aston Martin. Surely there's got to be something, a bit of oomph going into the race. Alex Albon, much better today. P5. I want to see if he can just hang on to the back of Danny Rick, hang on to the back of Verstappen, and being on a different strategy to the two Mercs and his teammate, think he could have a good race. Of course, Ricciardo, driver of the day. Can't wait to see him on lap 1. But my ones to watch for the Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc. Ferrari must have something up their sleeve. Surely. Points? It's just not good, is it? And that is it for your qualifying review for the Formula 1 2020 Belgian Grand Prix. I'll be back tomorrow evening with your race review, slightly later than normal, as I'll be joining the F1 Word for race reaction stream at about 5 o'clock. So if you want to hear our instant reactions, head over to the F1 Word. But the sprint race for Formula 2 is on at 10:10 in the morning, 2 the Grand Prix. Thank you all for watching. If you are new and you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, like if you did enjoy. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.